Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be rigging a up all characters' legs up so that they have IK and we can have the character move and walk around. If you're in the class for Animation 1, you can go into My Courses and under the Content section, um, we have a couple of things that you'll need. If you want to follow along in the instructions that I'm giving, um, those are going to be in the reference section. Let's see, where did I put them? Sorry. Let's see, I think in the rigging maybe. Um, okay, we have leg person foot rig. So this will tell you how to animate or how to rig this thing up, and that will open you up to this website right here. The other thing that you'll need if you don't create your own geometry for this will be in the geometry section, and you can download the leg person geometry geo. This is just um, the geometry to be able to animate, rig this thing up. So I'm going to download this and we'll go to storage and we'll just put this in temp for right now. We'll leave it at the leg person geo. Okay, going back to our table of contents here. If you find that you are running into problems and your rig explodes, we do also have the leg person rig no arms, and that is the full finished version of this character that you can animate out. Okay. So let's get started. Open up Maya. Hopefully we'll open up Maya. All right, well, this is kind of loading up. The plan of this next thing that you're going to be doing is doing a walk cycle. And so for the walk cycle, we just want to get the character moving in a way that's going to be not well, actually, yeah, like a generic kind of walk. So they're just want to get the mechanics of how a character moves and and just get that under control. So we are going to do an open. I'm going to go to my computer, go to my D drive, go to my temp, and then I'm going to find my not robot arm. That is, we are going to look for leg person geo. Open that up. All right. So also not going to be an animation. We'll be in the general section here. Okay. So right now we have some display layers in here. I'm also going to open up my outline. You can see we have all of the bodies here, and so what I have that is kind of makes this a little bit special is that we have ellipse low and ellipse high. So we have these two lips, set of lips here. I'm just going to take all of my geometry that I have in the screen. Don't do it in the outliner because we're just going to leave face high and low around alone. So I'm just going to just click and drag a box around all of these. I'm going to go to creating a new display layer, and that is over here with the little kind of paper and ball there. Click on that. I'm going to double click on that layer, and I'm going to call this Geo T-R-Y, geometry, L-Y-R. And I'm just going to turn the display type to reference, and then I'm going to hit save. Okay. And what that does is it allows me not to select my geometry anymore. I'm also going to turn that off for just a second, just to show you what those other faces are. So what we're going to end up having is we're going to have our low version of the, basic version of our head, which will look like that. I've also created this kind of low version if somebody wanted to have a mouth in there, and then also another one with a creepier, higher res version of some lips. Okay. So we'll just turn that back on there. All right. So I am going to go into my right view and I'm going to press the number 4. That's going to get me into my side view here. Okay. With that side view, I'm going to go into skeleton, and then go into create joints. And now I'm back to being able to create my joints. If you remember that from last time, I'm just going to click in the middle here. I'm going to go down to the center of the knee. I'm going to go over to like where this ankle joint is. So in the geometry, it kind of dips down and then the leg geometry comes down. So I'm just going to go into the middle of that point and just make a selection there. Okay, then we're going to move down to the ball of our foot. So I'm just going to click there and then go down to the tip of my toe. I don't want to go to the bottom, but I want to go to the front part of the tip of that foot. And then I'm going to hit enter. When I hit enter, I get out of that joint creation tool. You may find that your joints may be bigger or smaller than you want them to be. To change that, you can go into display, go down to animation, here, dot animation, and then in animation, there's a joint size. This joint size only changes the display of those joints. It doesn't actually change how the joints are. Like it's not going to make your objects bigger or smaller. It's just strictly on looks. So we're just going to make that a little bit smaller so that they're not super huge. Sometimes when they're really big, they can be unwieldy. So we're just going to put that at 3.6, 0.36 will work. So I'm gonna click on that. All right. Now we have our joints. We can see over here we have joint 1. If I hold shift and then press the left mouse button, that is going to go and show joint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's great. But what we'd rather have is to name these joints so that when we're working with it, we understand and know what part of the body we're working with. So we are going to rename these. So this first one, we are going to call that LT, and then hip. Then I'm going to go to the next one. That is going to be my LT knee. Click on this one. This is going to be the LT ankle. That's this one down at the bottom here. We have our ball. So we're going to go to LT ball. This next one here is going to be my LT toe. And that should be all we need to do for renaming those joints. Now it's important that you do LT in the beginning of it. You could right out left, whatever you want to do, but you want to be able to distinguish left and right because Maya can't have the same names of things. You can't just make it left, or you can't make it joints and have Maya be happy. Okay, so we've created these joints. And right now, if we go to our perspective view, you can see that that joint was created in the center of our scene here. And the reason for that is that when we're in our side view, it's just going to use this main zero plane as a creation plane. Okay, so this is the left leg. So I'm just gonna, you can go into your front view here and you can click and drag that over and get that into the center there. So right now, um, that's where the leg is going. Okay, so I just grabbed the hip there and then moved it over. Okay. Then let's see, turn the geometry on. Okay. So then another thing that we have to pay attention to here is joint orientation. So what we want to be able to do is that when we have our joints rotating, they are going to have a certain rotation in here. Now, if I, and I'll show you what that means. If I press F8 and then go up here into, uh, what is it? Probably this one, a little hidden. Yeah. So there's a little um, hidden toolbar in here. When you open that toolbar, you'll open this. If you don't have F8 pressed, these will all be blue. When you press F8, then they turn white and give you a couple different options. So we're in the component mode of these joints. And what we want to do is press on and select this little question mark. And when we select that question mark, when I zoom in here, you should now see that we can see the orientation of each joint. So what that means is that right now the X is pointing in a direction, is pointing kind of down, Y is pointing to the right, Z is pointing forward. If I scroll down here, we have Y is pointing over, Z is forward, all of that is looking good. Then when we get to here, Z is pointing up, and you might think, well, why is Z pointing up? Well, what's happening is that it's trying to orientate itself in a direction that would match. So it's essentially taking that Z, if this is Z and this is X, and it's pointing forward, X is pointing down, pointing forward, pointing down. Then when we get to the ankle, we turn the ankle. Now Z has to kind of point up to allow X to point down the chain. And then when we get to here, then we kind of lose the thread a little bit. And then what happens, sorry about this. Then what happens is that Maya kind of loses the direction of how it needs to orientate things. And now our Z is pointing down and the Y is pointing to the right. Okay. It's not entirely a huge deal for this particular rig, but for other rigs, when you get further into rigging, it can really mess up a lot of stuff. So generally what I try to do is have all of my orientations of my joints going in the same direction. And for me, I usually will select the I'll usually select that my y-axis points down the chain, my z points to the left, and x points forward. That's just something that I've grown to be used to. But if you have it pointing in a different direction, as long as all of your joints are orientated the same way, so that in this kind of chain here, that they don't end up um, that they don't end up having this little switch in them. That's the important thing. Okay. So how do we get these, aligned? Well, you can go in and you could code them to change and rotate. I'm not going to get into all of that for this demo, But what we're going to do is we are going to back out of the component mode for the joints. I'm just going to press F8 to get me out. Sometimes you might have to press it twice, but you want to have your joints green again. Once those are green, we're gonna hit the space bar. We're gonna go to skeleton, and then we're gonna go down to orient joint option box. In that orient joint option box, then what you can see is that we have a couple different options of orientation for our objects. So in the directions that I showed you before, I have the breakdown and definitions of what each of these mean. But for a quick rundown, the primary axis is the axis that will point down the chain. Okay. So once we have something pointing down the chain, so that's my primary, then we want to have the secondary. That's the one, let's see, the secondary sets the world axis either positive or negative. So that's going to be your flip from left to right or right to left. And then the secondary world axis orientation is going to be pointing forward or backwards into space. Okay. So for me, what I generally like to do, so I've found it to work pretty well, is that I select the Y to go down the chain. Z will be the secondary axis that will point to the right. And then I want to have X in the positive direction to be pointing forward. That for me is what I've found to work. Okay. So now if I select this, you'll probably notice, you might already notice that you can see the orientations on your joints here as this is going along. So when you press that, you should be able to see, maybe we can see it here. When I hit apply, we should be able to see this kind of flip over. The joint should stay in place, but the orientation should switch. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, boop. There we go. So now you can see that all of the orientations in there have changed. If I select this and press F8, now what we can see is that our orientation of the joint is going down the chain here. The Z on all of these is pointing to the right, and my X is pointing forward. These are pointing up because, again, if I have my Y pointing down the chain and then I have to turn it, then that X that's pointing forward needs to point up. So this is how you essentially want to have all of your joints kind of oriented so that things don't end up spinning around and not behaving the way that you want them to. Okay. So now that we have our joint oriented, I'm going to press F8. That's going to get me out of there. Now what we want to do is we want to create an IK handle. So an IK handle, if you haven't watched any of the other videos, is that that will allow us to be able to move the hip down, but keep our foot nice and flat and or steady. In FK, if I were to move the hip, the foot would move along with it, but we want to be able to have our foot hit the ground, then have our pelvis be able to absorb that energy and then spring back out, right? We want to have those working a little bit independently. So we are going to go into skeleton again. And then we're going to go down to create IK handle. And I'm just going to go into the option box for this. In the option box, we want to, let's see, we want to create a rotation plane solver. Okay, we don't want to do a chain. We'll do a chain a little bit later on. Rotation plane solver is essentially between those 2 points, like my hip and my ankle. The plane that's between those 2 things is going to tell me where my knee is going to be pointed. So that that invisible plane between those things is essentially going to be where my knee is going to be sliding along. Let's see. And again, that's I have that written in my notes here. Let's see, sticky on, don't necessarily have to have sticky on, but it'll help illustrate a point that I'm going to make here in a second. And then once we get that set up like this, then what I'm going to do is I will click from the hip to my ankle joint, not all the way down to the toe, just to the ankle. Okay. When I click on that ankle joint, now what happens is that it will make this brown um, it'll make this brown kind of tool here. This arrow is that invisible plane that my knee is going to kind of slide along. Okay, if I turn that plane around that axis, the knee will then turn in that direction. If I turn the plane this way, my knee is going to point in that direction. Okay. And that's in the twist, I believe. Yeah, see how my knee kind of goes along with that. Yeah, so with this IK handle, if I press W on my ankle, on my hip here, you can see that now my foot will stay still and my ankle or my hip will move around. I undo that. I can grab my IK handle, move this thing up, and now my foot stays, my foot comes with it, but my hip will remain in place. With the IK handle selected here, I'm going to select that name IK handle and I'm going to call it LT ankle IK. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my skeleton, go to my IK, create IK handles option box. I'm going to change this from a rotate plane solver to a single chain solver. What this is going to do is the it's going to allow the joint to be able to be moved, but from like an outside source. So from this IK handle, as opposed to grabbing the joints themselves and rotating them. Generally, you don't want to grab the joints. You want to have something else grabbing the joints, and then you grab that other thing. So we're going to go single plane solver. And we can turn sticky to on, that's fine. And then we're gonna just click from the ankle to the ball. So not all the way down to the tip of the toe, but just to the ball joint. And then once we do that, we're gonna do this again. We're gonna hold our spacebar, skeleton, go to IK handles. We've already set up the thing, so we don't need to go into the option box. But then we're going to go from the ball to the toe, and then we're okay. So now what we want to do is now that we have these IK handles, we want to rename these IK handles. So we're going to call them LT ball IK. And then we're going to select this and we're going to go to LT toe IK. So now that we have those set, what we want to do, or what we're kind of planning on doing here, is that we want to be able to have a rotation happening, or when our foot is flat on the ground, we want to be able to peel the foot up and have the foot maintain contact without having to like rotate the foot and then bring it back down. I don't want to have to lift my foot up and then rotate it and then push it back down and rotate this way. What I want to be able to do is have a system that I can just kind of dial in or dial back a peeling off of the foot so that as it's on the ground, I can roll it up and then have it go onto the tip. Um, so I'm going to create that reverse foot. Well, the tool that we're going to use is a reverse foot, and what that means is that we are going to create a joint chain that's going to go from the heel up to the toe, and then move its way back to the ball, and then up to the ankle. So before we went from the knee down to the ankle to the ball to the toe, this time we're going to go from the heel to the tip of the toe to the ball to the ankle. And what that's going to do is that joint system that's on top is going to essentially grab our joints that we've already made and pull those up in a way that will allow our foot to peel but still stay remaining on the ground. Okay. So we're going to turn um, our geometry on. We're going to make sure that it's in reference. So we can't select it. We're going to go back into our right view and then go to the side here. So I went to the right view, holding my spacebar, right mouse click, right view, or you can change it. You can change that up in here under panels and then orthographic, and then go to side. We'll also get you there. Okay. So we are going to we need to create the joints for this. So we're going to go, of course, back into skeleton. We're going to go down to create joints option box. And okay. So when we are creating this reverse foot here, we can help help us not have to do the joint orientation. And the way that we can help not do the joint orientation um, is to set up our primary axis in the tool settings, right away. So I'm just going to go and set this to Y, Z, X positive. And now when we create our joints, they should automatically orient to this direction when we create it here. All right. So what I want to do is I am going to, from the side view, I'm gonna click, let's see, I am going to hold the V key and I'm gonna snap. I'm gonna hold my V key. I'm gonna get close. I'm not gonna click on the joint, but I want to be close to this joint. And I'm going to hold the V key down. And I'm going to middle mouse click and drag that over so that it snaps to that point. Okay. Now what I want to do, now I'm going to middle mouse click my button here, or my joint. I'm going to middle mouse click and drag this thing down to the ankle. Okay. So what this did is by holding the V key and then snapping to this, it snapped in perspective view, it snapped to the same plane. Because remember, if we didn't, it would snap to the center. So we're snapping to the same plane as the ankle here. Go back to the right. Then by middle mouse clicking and dragging, we were able to pull it down to the bottom part of the ankle here. Is going to be where the foot rests on the ground, and you can also turn back your grid on just to make sure that you have it where you want it to be. And that's why I have middle mouse clicked on it. If we start clicking, then it will create new joints. So we don't want to create new joints yet. Okay, so we have that ankle joint set. Then we're going to hold Alt, middle mouse click, and drag down this way. I am going to now left mouse click onto this kind of corner point of the foot. Then we're going to go to the ball. And I'm going to go to the ankle. Actually, I'm going to just undo those two. Sorry about that. And the reason why I'm going to undo them is because I want to hold V while I click those. So hold V, click. Let's make sure that the geometry is off. So I'm going to hold V and then click on the joint and hold V and then click on that joint. Now I turned the geometry off because what ended up happening is that it was actually snapping the geometry. So I don't want that to happen. So I just turn that off. And that will get that. We could also turn this to template. That will, show the geometry and allow us to not snap to the geometry there. Okay. So once I get those other two set, I'm going to hit enter. Makes my joint. I can check in my perspective and see just to be sure that the joint is going around there. If I press F8, I can go in and look at my joints here and see that the Y is going down, pointing to the next joint. Z is to the right and the X is pointing forward. If I go over here, because this is going to point to the next joint, the Y is going that way. The Z is pointing to the right, and X is pointing down. And same thing here, and then same thing here. Okay. So we have all of that set. I'm going to press F8 and get out of that. I'm going to rename these joints that we just created. So I have joint 1 through joint 2, and I'm going to rename that first joint. I'm going to call that LT Art EV for reverse heel. I'm going to go to the LT REV toe. Go to the next one, do LT REV ball. Go to the next one and do an LT REV ankle. Okay. So we have all of those now renamed. We have the orientation set. Okay. So now that we have all of that, we can mirror our joints here. So for my hip joint, I can select this hip joint. I can hold my space bar, go to skeleton, and go down to mirror joints option box. Now the mirror joints option box, this gives us a couple different things that we can do. We can select how we mirror our joints. Right now, an XY plane means that it will be vertical and also along the X. So that would flip it forward and backwards. You don't have to do this, but if I hit apply here, you can see that we have a mirror going backwards in space. If I change this to YZ, what that means is that Y is the vertical, and then for our Z is going forward in the world space here. We're looking at world orientation. So Y is up, Z is kind of forward towards our camera. And so that's the plane that it's going to create, and it's going to use the center of our world as the mirroring section. So if I hit apply, now you can see that's what we want. But just to kind of put a finer point on this, if I do XZ, that's going to go this way, and then we'll have a mirror top to bottom, hitting apply, and we can see that that's not what we want. Okay. Now, the next function down here is the mirror function. One is behavior and one is orientation. And so what we want to do is we want to mirror this. Let's see what I want to do here. Right. What we want to do is we want to be able to mirror this orientation. No, is behavior. Sorry. We want to mirror the behavior. So what that means is that if I do um, a positive rotation, the feet will both rotate in. If I do +5 or -5, we'll move them both out. So we want to kick behavior. If we do orientation, then if I did the same rotation, they'll rotate the same way. So uh, we're going to do behavior. We're going to also search for, and this is where the left and right comes in. We're going to search for LT, and we're going to replace that with RT. Okay. And then we're going to make sure that we are doing it along the YZ plane and then hit apply. Now what we should have is we should have another joint. It should all be renamed right. All the rights are selected in there. And then we should also have our IK handles. Now they are flipped. It's okay that they're flipped. Don't worry about that. It's only because we had set up um, we set up the behavior. And so to get the same behavior, this tool needs to be flipped upside down. Okay, so we have that. We also need to mirror our left foot here, the reverse foot. I can select that left heel. We leave this all the same, and we're going to hit apply, and then we have our um, left heel orientation there. Yeah. Okay. So then what we want to do is we want to parent our IK handles to the respective joints in the reverse foot. So we want that reverse foot to be affecting our um, our our movement here. So what I'm going to do, what I mean by this um, is that we should be taking. I'm going to shut the geometry off again, just to make this a little bit easier here. Okay. So what I want to do is I have my reverse foot. This is my left reverse foot here. And then I have the IK handles here. Okay, we have these IK handles, the left IK handles. I want to attach these IK handles to the appropriate things. So for my um, for my ankle, I'm going to select, I'm going to middle mouse click and drag this down to the left reverse ankle. I'm going to take my ball IK and I'm going to middle mouse select and middle mouse click and drag that down to the left reverse ball. Okay, then I'm going to take my toe IK. Now my toe IK, what I want to be able to do is I want to group it to itself. So I'm going to do a Control G, and that's going to group it to itself. I'm going to rename that group. I'm going to call this LT toe flop. Flop. Toe flop. Oh, actually, sorry. Before I grouped it to itself, let's just back up 1 second here. I'm going to also move this left toe down to the left reverse toe. There we go. Now, once it's in here, now I'm going to group it to itself. I'm going to rename that group, call this LT toe flop. So this is going to allow us to be able to flex our toes up and down. Okay, and then what that also does is it puts the because since we moved it first, it put the pivot point up here at the toe. Before that, with it not grouped, it put the pivot point at the world center, and that's fine. We just have to change that. Okay, so let's do the same thing with the other side. I have my reverse feet here. I take that left ankle IK, middle mouse click, and drag that down to the reverse ankle. Take my right ball IK, drop that down onto the reverse ball, and then take my toe IK, drop that down to the toe. There we go. Reverse toe. Okay, so I drop that onto the toe, have that selected, Control G to group it to itself, and now I'm going to call this RT toe flop. So now we have a left toe flop, right toe flop. And so that's what your hierarchy should now currently consist of. Okay, now would probably be a good time to save our work. We've gotten pretty far, so let's save this. We're going to create a new project. So we're going to go to File. We're going to go down to the project window, go to New Project. The name of the project that we're going to make is, let's see, we are going to call this Walk Cycle. So we'll call it Walk Cycle. The location, I'm going to put that under the computer. I'll just keep it in my personal tip drive. That's going to be the directory that I'm going to select for this. And it's going to be in the walk cycle project. Everything else you don't need to worry about. You don't need to change unless you really want to change it, but you shouldn't need to at this point. And then just select accept. Okay, so now it created the project. Now, when we go to save that project, we should be able to go to File, Save Scene As, and it will automatically put it into this directory that we have, the scenes. And so I don't want to, I'm not going to save this as Geo, but what I'm going to save this as leg person rig, let's see, 01. It's going to be leg person 01. We're going to put a description of what we're doing, leg rigging, do an underscore, do MJR. Those are my initials. Again, if you are working with people, they should be putting their initials on the work so that you know who's doing the stuff. So if your initials aren't MJR, don't put it there. Put something else, and everything else we can just leave it. We'll do save scene as, and that should save the scene. That should version up our work. Okay. Now we have our foot controls. We are now going to create things to control them. Remember, I said you don't really want to directly put animation keys on joints. So we are going to create a little manipulator here. We're going to hit our space bar. We're going to go to create We're going to go down to NURBS, and NURBS primitive. We're going to do a NURBS circle. Okay, we're going to rename this NURBS circle. We're going to call it LT foot manip, M-A-N-I-P, for manipulator. We're going to press W to make sure we're in the move tool. We're going to hold V, and we are going to grab it in the center there, and we're going to snap over to the left reverse ball joint. Okay, then we're going to go into component mode by pressing F8. And we are going to, well, even before you press F8, you could scale this thing up just a little bit like that. Then you can press F8 and make this thing look a little bit more foot-like. So we'll just kind of pull these things in here like this. And just so it looks kind of foot-like. Once we do that, we'll press F8 to get out of that. And so that just makes it easy to grab that object. While we have it here, now would be a good time to kind of make a duplicate for this. To duplicate this, we can do a Control D to duplicate. This is not going to be a left foot, but it's going to be a right foot manipulator. We can get rid of that one. Okay, so an easy way to do this is that we could we can flip this thing over. So if I rotate here, so I'll just rotate this 180 in the rotate X 180. Okay, and then what I want to do is if I translate this thing, like right now we're 1.149 units away to the right. But if I set this to negative, what this will do is it'll go in the opposite direction. So now it'll move that thing over. So now we have a left and a right foot there. And I was getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry about that. We're just gonna delete that, right? The reason that I didn't go into that yet was because that I wanted to add attributes in here. So if you didn't follow along with me, good job. So we are going to go back to this left foot. We're going to add it. And the reason why I'm saying we'll add it now, that way when we duplicate it, we won't have to re-add these things. If you've already duplicated it, you can add these attributes in here. So the attributes that we're going to add, we're going to make sure that we have the thing selected. We're going to go into the foot manipulator. We're going to go to edit, and then we're going to add attribute. Okay, you can also go through modify and then add attribute. That works as well. The attribute that we're going to add is going to be heel, R-O-T-X, heel rotate X. The data type is going to be float, so we're going to have decimal points for this. The minimum is going to be -10. The maximum is going to be +10, and the default is going to be 0. Okay, so it's going to have a maximum limit, a minimum limit, and then the default is just going to be 1. Okay, so we're just going to click add, not OK. If we click OK, then it adds it, but then it makes this window go away, and we need to add a couple more things in here. So we're going to do the same thing. We have a list in here that we're going to just go down, and we're going to do the next one is going to be heel rote Y. And we're going to do -10 or minimum -10, and then a +10 for maximum. We're going to hit add. We're going to have a heel rotate Z, and then we're going to do a -10, +10, add. Then we're going to do a ball rotate. Now the ball is even though it's a ball, even though we're calling it ball, it's a hinge joint, so it only rotates in one direction. And who doesn't like one direction, right? So we're gonna do ball rotate. We're gonna do minimum of -10, maximum of 10. And so we only need one on the ball rotate. We're gonna hit add, and then we're gonna move down and start doing the toe. We're gonna do a toe rotate. X -10, +10, add. Then we're going to do a toe root Y +10, +10, add. Then we're going to do a toe root Z -10, +10, add. Okay, and the last thing we need to add here is our toe flap. Toe flap -10, +10, and add. Boom. Okay. So now we have all of those things. Now you can see why we don't we want to duplicate this after we do these set of instructions here. So we can make that go away, that window. We don't need that anymore. Now we'll do our duplicate here. So we are going to select that left control, do a Control D. We're going to rename that manipulator. We're going to call it RT foot manip. Okay, then we are going to make the translate value. We're going to make that minus. It's going to throw it over there. And then in the rotate Z, we're just going to set that to 180. Okay. Now we're going to select both of these controls. Now you can see that we have the scales at, being larger. We have our translates being in different places. What we want to do is we want to lock this down and say, okay, this is where our controls are going to be. We don't want them to move. If we move them out of place, we want to be able to set these back to 0 and have them lock into place. Okay. So I am going to go, you can either do modify, freeze transformations, and then edit, delete by type history, or you can go into the upper buttons here, and we have the same thing here. We have a freeze transformations is this one. You can see that those get frozen. Then we go into our delete by type history, and what that will do is it will kill the inputs that are happening at the bottom here. So I'll kill those. Boop. Those are gone. Now we don't have, now this is essentially like, this is our fresh new geometry controls. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to control our left reverse heel. Okay, so that left reverse heel, we want to be able to control this manipulator to it. And to do that, we want the control to be able to move these reverse joints. But at the same time, if we use parent constraining, it will lock the joints in place. So we have to, just like we did for the arm, the object throw, we need to have the joints in a group and then have the group be the thing that's going to be constrained or attached. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that left heel. We are going to group it to itself, Control G, group that to itself. You can see that that group went to the center. We're going to rename this group. We're going to call that not group 1, but we're going to call this group LT REV joints. Okay, hit enter. And then what we want to do is um, we want to snap this pivot to the heel. So we're gonna hold D and V. So what D does is it allows the pivot point to be manipulated without moving anything else. And V will allow us to snap to a thing. So we're just snapping it down to the heel. So that control is in the heel, or that group pivot point is in the heel. Select the left foot manipulator. So we're going to select that left foot manipulator. And we are going to control select. So over in here, we're going to control select the left reverse joints. So that's going to select both of those. We're going to hold spacebar down. We're going to go to constrain. We're going to parent option box. We're just going to maintain the offset. We shouldn't have to not maintain offset, but we'll maintain offset there. And we'll hit add. Okay, so we've now constrained the heel to this manipulator. So if I move my foot up and down, then that should be set. Um, okay, we can also do the same thing while we're here to the right side. So I can select the yeah. In my instructions, I just kind of went a little out of order as far as adding the other foot in there. Um, yeah, let's just keep going with the what we have here. Okay, so we are going to let's see, parent of the controls there. We're going to set some driven keys. Okay, so what I mean by set driven keys here. Okay, so what I mean by doing the set driven keys is what we want to do is we want to take the attributes that we've created and drive the motion with these attributes that we created. So we can dial it to 10 or minus 10 and have the foot start to peel off and rotate in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the left reverse heel. Select my left reverse heel. There we go. That one. And then I'm going to select the rotate X attribute. And then I'm going to go up to edit and then set driven key. And when I do that, it'll open up this window and it'll say that this left reverse heel is going to be driven. The rotate X is going to be driven. If I select the manipulator now, and then click on load driver, it'll put this in the top. So this is going to be the driving force. This is the thing that's going to be driven. And I have a heel rotate X and the left reverse heel rotate X. And that's what we're going to do. Excuse me, before we set any keys, we are going to be actually setting keys. It's a set driven key. And what we're going to be doing is we want to make sure that the keys that we're creating are not, um, that those keys are not um, going to have like an ease in and ease out of them. Since we are creating keys, we want to have a direct linear relationship. So I'm going to go into animation before we start creating any of these things. We're going to change this from to in tangent to linear and the out tangent to linear, and we're going to do a save. Okay. Now we should be able to create this animation driven key. And again, just quick review, a set driven key, what that is if you think of a TV and a remote control, when you push a button on the remote control, that makes the TV do the thing. The remote is the driver, the TV is being driven. Just like just like each button had to be programmed, the programmer could have said, okay, when I hit the power button, that changes the channel. We're actually the programmer setting this thing to be like, okay, when we have a heel rotate X change, what is that thing driving? And that's what this window is setting up here. So this left foot manipulator, heel rotate X, that's this over here, is going to drive our rotation of X of the left reverse heel. So we're gonna, we have everything set to 0. So we're just gonna set a 0 key on there. So that gets set. Now what we're gonna do, and if you want to check and see if it's been created, if a key has been created, if you select left reverse heel, you can see that now we have a little blue color there. That means that there's a connection that was made there. If I select my left foot manipulator, now what we want to do is we want to make sure that, or we want to say, okay, that was at 0. What happens when I set this heel rotate to 10? And when I set that to 10, we need to select the reverse heel. Then what we need to do is we need to decide what happens, what means, what does it mean to be positive? What does it mean to be negative? Because we have just a positive 10 or a negative 10. For me, what I kind of personally think of is that anything that's negative will go in or down. Anything that's positive will go in and up. Okay. You could have it be whatever you want. If you wanted positive to mean out and up, you could do that. And then your negative would be in and down. However you want to do it, you just have to get it right in your mind before you start going. Maybe write it down. But for me, positive is up, and negative is outward. Okay. So what that means for us right now is that that left reverse heel for my rotate, if I select on the words rotate X and I middle mouse click and drag, you can see that it'll start rotating this thing. So what that means is that when we go positive, I want this to go inward. Okay, so I'm just gonna set this to, even though it says it's negative 90, what I'm looking for is the action to do the thing however I want, however, however I want positive to react here. So in here, it happens to be a negative rotate there. And then I need to set a key on that. Now I want to go to my foot manipulator. I click on this. I say, okay, that's what happens at positive 10. What happens when I go to negative 10? And I change that, rotate X to negative 10. Go to my driven heel, rotate here, and my rotate X. So if I know that when I change this to negative, it went in, I could just turn this to 90 to get that outward going, and then I'll key that. Now, with those selected, with that positive and negative being set up, I should be able to select heel rotate X, go into my window, middle mouse click and drag, and I should have this thing going all the way through that. So when I go to positive 10, it goes inward. When I go negative 10, it will go outward. Positive in, negative out. Okay. I can set that to 0. That one is done in the books. Okay. Then what I want to do is I have my heel rotate Y is going to be the next thing. Now you need to make sure, this is where people get tripped up, is that you need to make sure to go to the next manipulator here. So heel rotate Y, I am going to rotate Y in that heel. Okay, so rotate Y up here and rotate Y here. I'm going to set a key because these are all zeroed because the default is 0. Now, if I go to my foot manipulator, I say, okay, that was at 0. What happens at positive 10? I need to select the reverse heel so I can see what happens here. So on that rotate Y, I can select the word rotate Y and I can middle mouse click and drag here. So positive, I want to go inward, not really caring if the value is positive or negative, but I want to see this go inward. So here I can say, okay, I want that to go to positive 90 and I'll key this. Now I can go back to my manipulator, say, okay, that's what's happening at positive 10, at negative 10, hit tab. Then I can go to my reverse heel and I should just do the opposite here. So I'll do negative 90 here. That's going to go outward. I'm going to key that. Okay, then once that's set and I set those keys, I should be able to go to my heel rotate Y and then see how this works. Positive, negative of 10, positive 10 goes in, negative 10 goes out. Set this to 0. And I just move down the line here. Heel rotate Z, rotate Z. And this is all a 0 point, so I'm going to hit key. When I hit key there, now what I need to do is select the foot manipulator and say, okay, what happens when I go to positive 10 on the foot manipulator? Then my left reverse heel, I select that, go to my rotate Z words, middle mouse click in the viewport, and I say that positive is going to go upward, negative is going to go downward. So positive in the manipulator is going to get me, a negative value up here, which is fine. I like to give the rigger a little bit, or the animator a little bit more space or ability to kind of push the poses, more than I probably think the rig needs. So I usually tend to make things a little bit more exaggerated when I'm rigging. So I'll just set this to negative 90 just to give that, it'll look ridiculous. Nobody's ankles should be really bending like that. But for whatever reason, if you need that, you have that range as an animator. So then I'm going to go to that reverse, or now that I've set that value, my foot manipulator is still at positive 10. I can key this. Then I go to my foot manipulator, say, okay, what happens when it's at negative 10? At negative 10, my reverse heel should now go in the opposite direction. So here it should go to 90. And then I'm going to key this at 90. So now when I go to my foot manipulator, select rotate Z, I should be able to go positive and negative all the way on that. And 0. Okay. So that is it for the foot manipulator. Not the foot manipulator, but the left reverse heel. Now what we want to do is we want to move down the joints here. Okay. So that was the heel. So heel rotate Y. Okay, so now for my foot manipulator, I have a ball rotate. So that ball rotate is going to affect my left reverse ball. So I need to find my left reverse ball. And that is going to, yeah, be able to have my toe kind of flex up like that. Okay. So that left reverse ball, I need to have that be a driven in here. So I'm gonna do load driven. That's gonna put my left reverse ball in here. Now I wanted to find out what the rotation is in here, because depending on how you have your joints orientated, this is where this can also be a factor. Is if my joint was orientated in a different direction, then this wouldn't be rotate Z, but it is currently rotate Z. So for rotate Z, that's what I need to be driven, rotate Z. And that is going to be the ball rotate. You need to, again, make sure that you go through and change these. So I'm affecting the ball rotate in my foot manipulator. Driving the reverse ball, and I'm going to rotate Z. So I'm going to go to, I'm going to set this. This is all set to 0. I'm going to key this. All right. I'm going to go back to my foot manipulator. I'm going to say, okay, if that was at 0, what happens at positive 10? So positive 10, my rotate needs to happen and go up. So I'll set this to 90, and I'm going to key that. So now you should be starting to kind of figure it. It's a repeating pattern. It's a way it repeats itself. So we know what's happening at 10. Let's go to minus 10. And then at minus 10, we want this reverse ball to then go downward. And so we can just set that. We knew that was 90. So we're going to set this to minus 90, and we're going to click on key. And then once we have that keyed, I can select this, click on ball rotate, click and drag, and now my ball is moving up and down or flexing. Okay, now this tip looks a little goofy, but don't worry about that for right now. We're going to set that to 0, and all of that should be set there. Okay. So we have the foot manipulator, and we have that set to go up and down. Now what we want to do is we want to move on to the toe rotate. So we are going to select our the right reverse toe, that one right there. We're going to load that into driven. And then we're going to do the rotate X. So we need to make sure that rotate X is on. And this is all set to 0. So we'll just key that. Then we'll go to the left foot manipulator, say, okay, what happens when that toe rotate is to a positive 10? So we'll take the right reverse toe, and we'll say that at a positive 10, it's going to go inward. So this will be negative 90. And we'll key that. And when we go to our foot manipulator, we'll select that as minus 10. So what happens when it goes to minus 10? That should have snapped. We set this at 0. Yep. Yes. This is where I was saying that that we need to make sure that we don't um do something wrong. And here, I'm just going to break this because this ended up getting switched to ball rotate. So I'm just gonna right mouse click and break connections. So it's good that you can um see what happens when things kind of go awry. We can just reset them. So I have my rotate X, and I want to change this to rotate X on the manipulator. This is all, yeah, it's when I click on the foot manipulator. If you don't have a key on there, it'll just go back to the last kind of attribute that was keyed there. So we are rotating X on the toe rotate. Everything is at 0, and we'll key this. There we go. Now that should be set. We can now go to positive 10, go to my reverse toe. Okay, what happens at positive 10? We're going to set this to a negative 90. So we're turning in for positive stuff. So we'll do key. Then when I set my manipulator to minus 10, we should see that jump. That's what I didn't see when we switched it. That's how I knew something was kind of off there. So we'll go to minus 10. My reverse toe, I want to have that go in the opposite direction. So we know that that's going to be a positive 90 there. Key that. Go to our foot manipulator. And now we should be able to click on the words toe rotate X and have that go in at positive 10, go out at negative 10. We'll hit 0, and then we'll move on to rotate Y. So rotate Y here, rotate Y here. Everything's at 0. Key it. Foot manipulator. What happens at rotate Y of positive 10? And select our reverse toe, and we can say at positive 10, I want this to go inward. So we're going to go minus 90 here, minus 90. And we'll do a key here. Go to my foot manipulator, go to minus 10, and then go to my reverse toe, set this to go outward. Set that to 90, and we'll key this. And then set, if we want to test it, we can click on the words, middle mouse click, positive is inward, negative is outward, set that to 0, move on to the next one, rotate Z, and rotate Z. All right, so all of this is set to 0. We key it, go to foot manipulator, set that to positive 10, click on our reverse toe, positive 10, we'll go upward. So we want this set to 90. Key that, go to our reverse toe, our manipulator, set that to minus 10. So we know what happens at 10, what happens at minus 10. And we know that this is going to go down, and we'll set that to minus 90 and key that. Okay, so at minus 90, up for positive 10, down for negative 10. Set this to 0. Okay, now for toe flap, that's going to be a little bit different of a situation. What we're going to do for toe flap is we are going to actually take the toe flap group. So this left toe flap, actually, should remove that. Just capital T, just to keep things the same here. So for toe flap, I'm taking the toe flap group this time, and I'm going to be driving that. So load driven. Okay, and then what I want to do is on this toe flap, I want to have this. I want this to be able to raise the foot, or I want this to be able to flop up and down. Okay. One thing that I didn't do in here was that with this toe flap group, right now the center of this is at the toe. I'm going to press W, and then I'm going to hold D and V, and I'm going to grab it from the middle and snap it up here. So we want this group pivot point to be up at the top. So again, if I undo that, I'm holding the D key, also holding the V key that makes it round, grab from the center, left mouse click and drag up that way, and it should snap. Now what happens is that by having that offset there, now what'll happen is my toe will actually do some flopping. Couldn't flop with the center at the, or with the pivot point at the toe. We need to have a little bit of distance on that. We can also, while we're thinking of it, take this toe flap, do the same thing. D and V, grab from the yellow center and snap it up there. Then this should allow our toe to rotate. Okay. So now we have toe flap. We want to know how or what we're going to be doing. We want it to flop this way. So I can see that that's rotate Z. So I'm going to have my toe flap selected. I'm going to have rotate Z selected. I'm in the group and I'm going to do key. Then we're going to go to foot manipulator. Say, okay, what happens at +10? At +10, our toe flap should raise up. So we're going to go up. That's going to create a -90 on there. Key. Go to my toe manipulator. Set that to -10. Do my toe flap. Set that toe flap to 90. That's going to set it down and hit key. So now if I click on my foot manipulator, now my toe flap should swing through that positive up, negative down. Okay. All right. And that's how you set your foot. Now what we want to do, yeah, okay. So we'll just keep kind of going on with the things here. I'm just gonna pull this off to the side. Actually, I'll just minimize this for now so it's down in the corner. So what we want to do now is we want to tell the knees where to point. Right now, the knees are, they're going along that pull vector, but we want to be able to, or the that plane that we had, we want to be able to grab something in space and have the knees kind of point, just like we have for the IK elbow. We want to do the same thing for the knee. So we are going to create a NURB circle, create NURBS primitive circle. All right, we've created our NURB circle. We are going to rename this NURB circle. We're going to call it left LT, left knee aim. And then what we want to do is we want to have this be a triangle. What we're going to do is create it through the inputs here. We're going to change the degree from cubic to linear. We're also going to change this from 8 to 3. When we change that to 3, then we get this nice little triangle there. We are going to rotate it in Z by 90. And we are going to hold down V and then snap it to our knee. And we'll pull it out in front of the knee a little bit, something like that. And then we are going to also scale it down. We don't need it to be super big. So something like that. We just need it to look like a control. And then we're going to Control D to duplicate it. We're going to set this thing to be not left knee, but we're going to call it right knee. Delete one, delete the one there. And then we're going to make this, instead of positive X, we're going to call it negative X. And now we should have 2 of those. And then we named it right knee. We're going to select both of those knees and we are going to modify freeze transformations. And then we're also going to delete the history. Okay, then we're going to select that knee pull vector. Shut this off. So we'll select that. The knee aim, and then we're going to shift select the ankle pull vector here. So that ankle IK. Hold our space bar down. go to constrain, go to pull vector, and then we should have this line that goes from that hip down to our aim. If we deselect that, that kind of goes away, but it's still connected here. So we can see that now our knee will follow the path of, or the placement of this pull vector. Do the same thing on the right side. Select, select this one, shift select our ankle, go to constrain, parent, option box, not parent option box, sorry, pull vector. Pull vector. There we go. So now when we select this one and move it around, that should also point the knee in a direction. Okay, then we generally the knee follows where the foot goes. Sometimes you need the knee to point in a different direction. But what we're going to do is we're going to have the pull vector as a child of the foot control. So I'm selecting the knee aim, shift select the foot manipulator and press P. We can see over here, now that's a child of that. We're gonna do the same thing on this one. Select the knee aim, select the controller and press P. And that comes a child of that. So we're going to save our work. We're going to version up, file, save scene as. Never do a like save scene. Don't do a control S. That's horrible. You might run into the problem of the of Maya just creating a 0 kilobyte file where it erases everything, and that would be bad news. I don't want to do that. So we have plenty of space. We can version up, change this from leg person to leg rigging, and then do save scene as. Okay, now mirroring joints. On my sheet, I already actually went in through and talked about mirroring joints. I got ahead of myself here. So we've already gone through and we've mirrored the hip. We've also parented the right reverse heel and went through all of that. Um, So the only kind of thing that we need to do here is to connect our and set up our set drivens for the foot manipulator. So on the right side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my right reverse heel. So that's this joint here. I'm going to go and select my rotate X. I'm going to go to edit, go down to set driven key, and that will open this up. We probably could have opened it up down here, but we have that now open. Then we need to add our then we need to add the controls for the foot manipulator. So I'm going to select that, load it in as a driver. Okay. And then down at the bottom, we're going to have the heel rotate, drive the heel rotate. Right now, there it's all set to 0. So we're just going to key that. We're going to go to the foot manipulator, and we're just going to go through the same thing that we did on the left side. That we're going to say, okay, left heel, rotate X. What happens when it's positive 10? When it's positive 10, then what we want to have happen is that we want to have this thing rotate inward because positive is in. So we'll say minus 90 is going to be in. So we'll key that. Foot manipulator, go to minus 10. And minus 10, we're going to go to rotate X and set that to 90. We're going to key that. Okay, then we're going to set that to 0. Go to heel rotate Y, Y, and rotate Y. This is the default. key it. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern progress now. Foot manipulator, we've keyed that at 0. So now what we want to do is go to our foot manipulator. What happens at positive 10 on rotate Y is that we're going to go rotate Y and we're going to go inward. So we'll take this and set it to 90. Key, foot manipulator, set this to minus 10. Reverse heel, set that outward, and we're going to go minus 90. Key, foot manipulator, set that to 0. We're going to go to the heel rotate. Make sure that you change your heel rotates Z. This is at 0. Everything's at 0. We're going to key it. You're going to go to right foot manipulator, rotate Z. We're going to find out what happens when it goes to positive 10. Select the reverse heel. Select rotate Z, middle mouse click and drag. So we want up. That's going to be positive. It's going to be negative 90 here. We'll key that. Go to the foot manipulator, minus 10. Heel reverse. That's going to be 90 is going to go down. So we'll key that. Go to right foot manipulator, set that to 0. Now we're going to do the ball rotate. So we need to select our right reverse ball, this one, and we're going to load that in as driven. So we have the ball and ball. And then I need to know what it is I'm rotating, and I think it's going to be rotate Z. Yep, that's going to give me that motion. So down here, I want rotate Z is going to be driven by ball rotate. We're going to key this because this is all at 0 on that manipulator. So go key, go to my right foot manipulator, go to ball rotate, set that to positive 10. At positive 10, we need to find out what that's going to do. It's going to go up. So we'll set this to 90 and we'll key that. Select the foot manipulator. What happens at minus 10? Reverse ball, rotate, and we'll go downward, minus 90. And key, foot manipulator. Set that to 0. Then we'll go to the toe rotate. Toe rotate X. So we need to select the right, let's see, right toe, there we go, right reverse toe, that one. We are gonna load that as a driven. Okay, and then we're gonna rotate the X, and then we're gonna rotate toe X, and this is all at 0, so we're gonna key it. We're going to go to right foot manipulator, set this to positive 10. Nope, that's the heel. We already know what that one is. Rotate toe X, positive 10. Then we go to our reverse toe. Change this as a positive. So we'll set that to, yep, minus 90. We'll key that. Go to our foot manipulator, set this to minus 10. So if that is 90, we'll set this, or minus 90, that will change that to 90. We'll set that to go outward. We'll do a key there. So now our foot rotate will go inward and outward. Then we're going to do the Y. Go down to Y, rotate Y. This is all at 0, so we're going to key that. Go to our foot manipulator, rotate Y, set that to positive 10. Look at the reverse toe, rotate Y, positive. We want it to go inward. Is going to be minus 90. We're going to key that. Go to our foot manipulator, set this to minus 10. Go to the reverse toe, rotate Y, should be 90. Can't remember. Okay, yeah, that is going out. Good, that's what we want. So we'll set that to 90. And then we will rotate Y, we'll key this. Then we'll go to right foot manipulator, set that to 0. and then do our rotate Z. Make sure to change this, rotate Z and rotate Z. We'll key all of that. Go to our foot manipulator, change this to +10. Find out what happens when this goes to +10. It's going to go up because it's positive. So we'll set that to 90. Key that. Go to our foot manipulator. Set this to -10. Find out what happens at -10. Go to our reverse toe at -10. Set this to -90. Oops, -90. Come on, -90. There we go. Zip it along too easily. So now that foot manipulator should go. Our toes should be rotating there. Set that to 0. Toe flap. We want the right toe flap group. That toe flap group, we're going to have that as the thing that we're going to do, and we are going to load this in as a driven. And then we are also, excuse me. If we are unsure about what it is that we need to rotate, we can just go to rotate. I think it's Z, should be Z, and that should be good there. So we'll put this back to 0. And we're going to rotate Z. So we have toe flap, rotate Z. We'll keep this at 0. Then we'll go to here. Find out what happens at +10. At +10, it goes up -90 and key. Foot manipulator, set this to -10. Toe flap goes down to 90 and key. And our toe flap should now be toe flappy. Set that to 0. Okay, that's, I think, probably like the hardest part of this whole thing. So we did the pull vector. We got the knee all set. Let's let's save this one more time because we did all that work here. So we'll save it as version 3. We're going to version up, always version up. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to be able to connect the hips. So we're going to go to our front view and we'll turn our grid on. We'll turn our geometry on here and we'll just select this center point up here. So we're going to go to skeleton. We're going to go to create joints. And then I'm just going to hold let's see, X. Yeah, X will do a grid. So I click on that and hit enter to get out of that. Press W to select the joint. Now, what I want to do is I want to select this joint to this middle joint. Okay, so I'm just going to select one of the hips, shift select that middle joint and press P. I'm going to select the other hip joint, shift select that middle joint and press P. Then I'm going to select that middle joint and I'm just going to rename this thing. I'm going to call this thing our root. That's going to be our root joint. Okay, getting down to the end here. So we have our body. Should be able to move this thing around. Should be able to take our controls. Oh, forgot to parent or to actually do the constraint for this heel. So for this heel, we need to take that reverse heel. And I'm going to group it to itself, do a D and a V, grab it from the center, and then snap it to the joint there. So we have this group 1. We're going to rename that group 1 R T. We're going to call it right, REV, reverse joints. We did that for the left. You can see that right here. So once we have that selected, reverse joints, now what we want to do is we want to constrain that group. So I'm going to select my manipulator. I'm going to control select over here, control select the reverse joints group. I'm going to do a constrain. I'm going to do a parent, and I'm just going to make sure maintain offsets on and hit add. It shouldn't matter, but I like to do it just to make sure nothing moves. Now I should be able to grab that foot, and that foot manipulator moves around, and we can rotate it around. All good stuff. Great. Okay. We'll save this one more time. So 16 as. Don't be afraid to, if you're making progress, don't be afraid to version up. Better to have progress and have a lot of versions than, think that you're doing a great job saving it and, by not saving it. And then you end up losing all of your work. Okay. All right. That's what we're going to do. What we need to do is we need to have body control on this thing. So we are going to create another NURB circle. So I'm going to go to create NURBS primitive, NURBS circle, and I'm going to press W to go into move, hold V, grab it from the center, and then snap up. There we go. It's going to snap to the joint there, and I'm going to scale this thing up. And then I'm also going to make it a triangle. So we're going to do the triangle just like we did the last one. We're going to go into the inputs, go down to cubic, go to linear. So that makes it linear. Then we're going to change this from 8 to 3. And you can see that our manipulator just needs to go in the opposite direction. So we'll rotate this 180. What we'll also do is we'll scale it, because if I leave it the way it is, it's a little bit small, and you can see that we want to have it be able to be easily grabbed from the outside. So this NURB circle, we're going to rename this body move. Okay, and in the the channel box, we already did that. Scale it to 5. Yeah, that works. We can change this all to 5. That's what it has in my instructions. Doesn't really matter what size you have it, because what we're going to do is we are going to freeze and delete the history on that. Okay, then what we need to do is right now, this thing is not moving anything. We want it to move that joint. So we're going to select our controller, shift select the joints here, and do a constrain parent. And in that constrain parent, now we should be able to move this thing up and down. Have our body move all around. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we need an overall control for the character, just to package everything underneath. If we need to move our character into a space, we could use this tool to move it there. But we're going to create a NURB circle, create another NURBS circle. We're going to leave it down here at the bottom, and we're just going to scale this thing up. It's going to kind of go around that. And we're going to rename this thing. We're going to call it main move. So it'll move if, it'll bring everything else with it. Okay. Main move scale and freeze transformations. Okay, and then we also want to freeze transformations, kill the history on that. All right, now that we have all of this set, what we need to do is, as you can see, we move our character around, our joints around. The geometry does not go with it. That geometry, we just have to attach it to our body. So I'm going to take it out of reference. I'm going to press the 4 key on my keyboard. Um, so we are in wireframe mode. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to constrain the geometry to our joints. So I'm going to select the body here. Let's see, I want to go the other way around. I want the joints to constrain the geometry. So I'm selecting that root joint, shift selecting the body geometry here and going to constrain and parent. Okay. And you can see that there is some blue happening there. If I move this around now, you'll see that the body moves with the control. Okay, we're just going to do that for everything that just kind of makes sense for this. One thing I am noticing that's kind of weird. I don't know how I ended up doing it, but I ended up making this joint here really low. I don't know why I did that. Or what the problem? What I yeah, it's a little late to move it because it'll start straightening out my joints there, but that's fine. This is not a perfect rig. You could, if you wanted to, get this a little bit more kind of in the center there. We could move these down just a tiny bit, and then that'll make those look like they're uh, joints in the center. That works too. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we are just going to constrain this geometry. So I'm selecting the joint and the nearest geometry. So this one, and I'm going to do a constrain parent. And you can see that it turns blue. The other thing that I want to do is, as I have this joint going down, if I select that joint, shift select the geometry. If I wanted to redo a process that I've already done before, I can press G, and that will redo the last kind of thing that I just did. So it redid the geometry there. Okay, something happened. Let me undo this. Undo. I think I moved my body down. There it is. That's what my problem is. I moved the body down, but then didn't move it back up. So I had my joints down. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's try this again. We're gonna select my hip, shift select the ball geometry, and go to constrain, parent, and constrains. Then I'm gonna go here to the hip, shift select the next geometry that's there and press G. That constrains that. Go to my knee joint, shift select the knee geometry, press G. Go to my the knee or like um, tibia and fibula, shift select the or shin, shift select the geometry and press G. Okay, and then when we get down to the feet, well, let's just go and do the other side while we're thinking of it. Don't do the feet yet. Let's just go to the hip joint, select the geometry, press G, select the joint going down the femur, and then the geometry close to it, press G, select my knee control, shift select and press G, go to my shin, select the shin geometry, press G, All right, now we're back to our geometry here. So what I want to do is I want to select my left reverse ankle. So I'm going to go to my left reverse ankle joint. That's the right, my left reverse ankle joint, that one. And I'm going to shift select the geometry because I want this to kind of stick with that. And then I'm going to press G. Then I'm going to, let's see, select my left reverse ball, and then select that ball geometry there and press G. Then I'm going to go to my toe IK. Let's see here. Toe IK. Yep, my toe IK. And the left toes. And my left toe is these ones right here. There we go. The geometry. And I'm going to press G. Then I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to select um, the right reverse ankle. Just looking to make sure I don't. It's a lot of steps, so we want to make sure that we're doing it right. So we have the right reverse ankle. Shift select that geometry or the heel, and we'll press G. I'm going to select the right reverse ball. So right reverse ball. Shift select that ball geometry and press G. And then we're gonna select the right toe IK. And our geometry here and press G. So let's just make sure the toe flop, I just want to make sure that that is flopping. There we go. All that geometry is working. And all of the geometry for the foot is going. We have our toe, our ball roll, and the if we put this all back on the ground, then I can have a ball roll that sticks to the ground. I have a heel that will stick to the ground there. And I have a toe with a Z that will stick to the ground there. Okay. And there are some people that will like put a set driven that will roll the foot up. So you have that option to roll the foot in just the exact same way. I personally don't like that because that ends up being something that's being automated for me. And so if I want to do something different, then I'm working with two different controls and just doesn't end up usually making better animation is what I find. Okay. Yeah, and then I just check this one just to make sure all of my foot is working. You'll also notice this is not like something that will have like a stretchy leg to it. So the foot disconnects. If your foot ends up as you're animating disconnecting, um, the thing that you just need to do is either bring the foot back up to the leg so that it attaches again, and or you could bring your body down to the foot so that it attaches again. Either way, you probably don't want to have a gap in your foot. Let's set this to 0. And that is that on all of that stuff. So now what we want to do is save our work. We are almost done. I know this has been kind of a long haul, but we're going to do a file, save scene as one more time, just to make sure that things don't get messed up. We'll do a version 5, save. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to clean up the rig so that so all of our controls are under controls one group, and that our geometry or our joints aren't unable to be selected, that we can't select our um, the geometry by accident. And also, speaking of geometry, I'm going to turn the geometry off here for a second. I'm going to turn each one of um, these heads on, and I'm also going to turn their reference off. We also want to have these low lips and high lips connected to the head here. So I'm going to select my I'm going to select the joints, shift select the geometry, and do a constrain parent. I'm going to hide this one, turn the high lips on. I'm going to deselect everything, select the joints, shift select the geometry, and do a G. And so now the um, high and the low will follow along with it. Okay. So we can shut both of those off, turn our geometry back on, and then set this back as well. So that's that. Also, for the lips low, we want to take that geometry for both of those and just turn those back to reference. So when we turn them on by accident, to animate with, we can shut those. We can not select them by accident. Okay, so we're going to clean up our outliner. First thing we're going to do is select the left and right foot manipulators. So I'm selecting this foot manipulator and this foot manipulator. And I am going to group those together. I'm going to do a Control G. And by grouping those together, I'm going to rename those controls. Controls GRP. I put a GRP on those so that I know that this is just a container. It's just a group container. That becomes more important when we're rigging later on, like for more sophisticated things, but good to get into the habit of it now. We want to select our body move. And we also want to, let's see, select body move, and we're going to parent it to the to our main move. So I'm going to press P, and what that means is that if I move this around, my my body move will move, but if I move the body move around, it won't move the master move or the main move. I'm going to select that main move, and I'm going to parent it to my controls group. So I can take that main move, middle mouse click down, and drag it to the controls group. So far, my controls group has the foot manipulators, and it has my main move. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the root. So we're going to select the root joint. We're also going to select the reverse joints. So I'm just taking the top group here. So I'm holding control, selecting right reverse joints, and we should have a left reverse joint. So all three of those, not everything inside of them, but just the top level of those. And we're going to do a Control G to group those together. We're going to rename that group. We're going to call this joints. GRP, joints group. And then we're going to select our geometry group. Do we have a geometry group? Looks like we, yeah, we need to select all of our geometry together. So we're going to take all of our geometry here. We're going to do a Control G, and we're going to create a geometry, GRP. Okay, and then our now that we have a geometry group, we're going to consolidate our geometry and our controls. So we're going to take geometry, joints, and controls and do a Control G. And we're going to rename that. We're going to call this leg person and hit enter. So now all of that falls under one under one kind of group. Okay, so now we have our leg person. So now it's all organized in there. What we want to do is we want to um, have our geometry group. So we have our geometry layer. We're going to add um, add this geometry group to that geometry layer. So right mouse click, and we're going to add selected objects. So now our geometry group will be in there. What else do we have? So now what we need to do is create a joints group. So we're going to, or a joints display layer. We're going to select that joints group. We're going to click to add a new layer. We're going to call that layer joints LYR for layer. We're going to make that referenced and not visible. We're going to make that bright red and hit save. Middle mouse click and drag that down to the bottom because that's not something that we're going to be using very much anymore. And then we have our controls group. We're going to select the controls, make a new display layer for that, double click on it, call this controls LYR, and we'll hit save on that. And then now we can turn our controls on, we can turn our geometry on, we can make that geometry be a reference so it doesn't kind of pop up here. And everything is hidden. So now if you select and try to select anything that you shouldn't be selecting, it should all be hidden and out of view. Okay. Let's save this, do a file, save scene as, and we'll save it as leg person 6. Delete 6. And we'll do save as, and that's it. So if you have any questions on how to rig this up, if you're running into issues, shoot me an email or ask. All right. Thanks.